Even after many years, the discovery of a dead body in a Japanese toilet remains one of the most baffling unsolved mysteries, leaving many curious people searching for answers. On February 28, 1989, a 23-year-old female teacher at an elementary school in Fukushima, Japan, returned to her dormitory after finishing class. As usual, she went to the bathroom to wash her face and attend to her personal hygiene upon returning. While using the restroom, the female teacher glanced down and spotted a shoe. It's worth noting that squat toilets were still common in Japan at the time. This discovery set off alarm bells, and she rushed to the manhole cover. There, she saw something that resembled a human leg. Terrified, the teacher immediately called the police. Upon receiving the information, the police swiftly secured the scene and confirmed the presence of a human leg. However, attempts to extract it were unsuccessful due to the narrowness of the pipe. Consequently, the police called in the fire department, who utilized machinery to break the pipe and retrieve the body. The discovered body was that of a man found in an extremely unusual position. Despite the frigid February weather, the man was shirtless, but a neatly folded shirt was clutched to his chest. His lower body remained clothed, his pants were on, knees bent, and his face was tilted slightly to the left. Due to its prolonged submersion in the septic tank, the retrieved body was stained. However, upon identification, someone recognized the victim. Naoyuki Sagano, a 26-year-old supervisor at a nearby nuclear power plant, was the identified victim. He lived in a village 10 minutes from the elementary school and stood 1.7 meters tall. Villagers described Naoyuki as a kind man who actively participated in community events. His friendly nature is why so many hope the police can bring justice for him. The female teacher who found Naoyuki's body revealed that she recognized him. Prior to the incident, she had been harassed by strange phone calls, prompting her to seek help from Naoyuki, along with her boyfriend. Based on the investigation and autopsy, Naoyuki likely died on February 26, 1989, before his discovery. His body showed only minor scratches on the elbow and knee. Despite the lack of struggle marks, forensic examiners concluded hypothermia caused his death. Police theorized that the victim accidentally fell while attempting to peek into the teacher's restroom. However, Naoyuki's father vehemently rejected this explanation. In his eyes, his son's kind and gentle nature made such an act unthinkable. Faced with suspicious details, many people believe that the case still has many twists and turns. First, the biggest mystery of the case is how a tall man could get into the toilet. The enduring mystery of the case centers on how a man of Naoyuki's height could have ended up lodged in the toilet, given the reported dimensions of the manhole covers. These access points are reportedly only 36 centimeters and 20 centimeters, and according to Japanese National Health Statistics data from the 1980s, the average Japanese adult male shoulder width is 40 centimeters. This suggests Naoyuki could not have entered the septic tank on his own. Another puzzling detail concerns the shoes. As mentioned earlier, the teacher spotted a single shoe before finding the body. The police later located the other shoe near a river. The presence of just one shoe undermines the theory of peeping, suggesting a more sinister scenario, possibly a murder. The third perplexing detail is the neatly folded shirt clutched to the victim's chest. How could he have squeezed into such a confined space, positioned himself, and then folded his shirt before expiring? Despite numerous suspicious details, the police officially closed the case. However, it remains an unsolved mystery to this day. This case ranks among the most bizarre unsolved mysteries. The circumstances surrounding the victim's death are horrifying, and similar cases are difficult to find, even in global criminal history. However, despite the case's international notoriety and unsolved nature, Japanese police controversially closed it. Beyond images of the excavation using a mechanical digger, police withheld any photos of the victim's body from the public. The limited information released due to the swift closure of the investigation fueled public speculation, blurring the lines between fact and theory. For those seeking answers, the case's official conclusion remains unsatisfactory. The central question surrounding the Naoyuki Sagano case is whether his death was a suicide, accident, or murder. The first possibility is suicide. People who take their own lives often leave behind a note or some kind of message hinting at their intentions. However, no such evidence surfaced in this case, leaving this theory unsubstantiated. suicide seems unlikely. People who choose suicide often employ swifter or less agonizing methods, such as hanging, jumping, or overdosing. Crawling into a cramped septic tank wouldn't be most people's preferred way to end their lives. Additionally, Naoyuki's behavior prior to his death, including socializing with friends and bidding farewell to his parents, doesn't suggest suicidal intent. Therefore, suicide can likely be ruled out as a cause of death. The police theory hinges on Naoyuki being a peeping Tom, but this raises questions. Peeping Toms typically fixate on their target's whereabouts. If this were the case, attempting to peek into a restroom without knowing if the teacher was even present seems illogical. Additionally, a fetish for feces and urine isn't a prerequisite for voyeurism. Therefore, the police explanation lacks sufficient merit. While it's conceivable that Naoyuki was a peeping Tom with an unusual fixation on unpleasant smells, and that he somehow knew the teacher had returned, the likelihood seems incredibly low. The notion that he squeezed into a narrow pipe to indulge this fetish is illogical. Several aspects of the police theory raise doubts. Firstly, squeezing into a narrow pipe would necessitate knowledge of its dimensions and likely require lubricants to ease passage. However, no such lubricants were found with Naoyuki. Secondly, the weather conditions are a concern. February temperatures in Fukushima Prefecture average around 2 degrees Celsius, and the village reportedly experienced snowfall with depths reaching 20 centimeters. In such frigid conditions, removing his shirt before entering the confined space seems illogical. Furthermore, waiting in the narrow pipe for an unknown amount of time defies logic. Considering Tanaka Yumi didn't use the restroom until hours after Naoyuki's death, any plan to surveil her would have required a lengthy wait. Yet, Naoyuki left home without indicating a long absence. He simply said he was going out, left his car parked, and didn't even take his car keys. These actions suggest a quick trip, not waiting for a target. Another puzzling detail concerns the shoes. As previously mentioned, the teacher spotted a single shoe before finding the body. The police later located the other shoe near a river, hundreds of meters away. If we're to believe Naoyuki ran to the river, removed a shoe, then waded through deep snow barefoot to the crime scene to peek, this scenario becomes highly implausible. The presence of the lone shoe introduces another possibility. Could Naoyuki have been fleeing a threat, entering the pipe to escape and tragically meeting his demise there? While this explanation could account for the misplaced shoe, it seems improbable. In a life-or-death situation, common sense dictates seeking refuge in a more accessible and visible location, preferably with people around who could offer assistance. Hiding in a cramped, enclosed space like a septic tank wouldn't be most people's first instinct. Even in a desperate situation, most people wouldn't enter a narrow pipe headfirst. Crawling in feet first allows them to assess their surroundings with a headlamp or flashlight and facilitates a quicker escape if necessary. Having ruled out suicide and accident as plausible explanations for Naoyuki's death, the possibility of murder becomes a more prominent focus of the investigation. If this case is indeed classified as a homicide, several critical questions would demand answers. First, how did the perpetrator manage to insert Naoyuki's body into the septic tank pipe? Second, what motive fueled the crime? Finally, the identification of the culprit remains paramount. Police acknowledge the difficulty of entering the narrow pipe without the victim's cooperation. This aligns with the fact that several officers struggled to remove the body, ultimately resorting to an excavator to unearth the entire pipe. However, by the time police recovered the body, Naoyuki had been deceased for dozens of hours. Rigor mortis, caused by the cold weather, likely set in, making extraction significantly more difficult. The question remains, was the pipe truly that impenetrable when Naoyuki was alive? At the time of the murder's discovery, online images and articles deliberately exaggerated the corpse's size, creating a morbid and unsettling atmosphere. To gain a more accurate understanding of the crime scene, let's redraw it to scale, taking into account the pipe's protrusions at connection points, which are only 3 centimeters long. Naoyuki Sagano is approximately 1.7 meters tall. According to the body proportions of adult Asian men, the length of his upper body, from the top of the head to the bottom of the buttocks, is about 93 centimeters. In reality, based on this ratio, there are still enough spaces within the pipe for someone like Naoyuki to adjust their posture inside. Furthermore, can men with a shoulder width of 40 centimeters truly be unable to fit into a pipe with a diameter of 36 centimeters? In fact, most people can easily enter spaces a few centimeters narrower than their shoulder width by simply bending their arms in front of their chest. Therefore, forcing someone like Naoyuki inside the toilet pipe wouldn't be impossible, although it would likely be uncomfortable. The lack of significant trauma, only abrasions to his joints, suggests Naoyuki may not have put up much resistance before being forced into the pipe. This raises the possibility that he was either incapacitated or unable to resist. When Naoyuki was found with his calves pulled upwards, it's consistent with the posture shown in the drawing, assuming he was forced into a coma beforehand. In this position, with the lid slightly ajar, Naoyuki could potentially maneuver himself out of the pipe. His legs would have enough leverage to kick the lid open further, and maintaining an upside-down position wouldn't require excessive strength. This might seem contradictory. After all, Naoyuki was found completely trapped inside the pipe, with no evidence suggesting he attempted escape. The reason is simple: if he didn't know when he was forced inside, waking up to find himself in a strange, foul-smelling, dark, and confined space would be disorienting. Disoriented and lacking any idea of his situation, Naoyuki wouldn't be able to quickly determine his location and likely just tried to find a source of light, believing it to be the way out. Unfortunately, the light source turned out to be at the opposite end of the pipe. With limited options, he could only crawl forward, pulling his legs up to gain momentum to push himself back in the direction of the light. However, the narrow toilet opening, only 20 centimeters in diameter, made escape impossible. Whether Naoyuki was harmed or accidentally fell into the toilet, the last time of his life was extremely difficult and disastrous. He was imprisoned in the dark, stinking space of the septic tank and may have struggled to find a way out. However, there is certainly no way out for the man to escape. Naoyuki could have called for help for so long in desperation that no one heard him. And you, what do you think about this shocking case?